I think a lot of us that are observers of the former vice president are surprised at how direct she was, at least in the excerpt. And I'm hesitant to do too much on the book because I'd like to read the whole thing. I have not gotten my copy yet. I have only read the excerpts in the Atlantic. But what was interesting is what it confirmed. She confirmed a lot of the reporting that I had done and been doing during the Biden Harris years, which was how marginalized she was, how much the West Wing, it had looked to me, and certainly I had my own sources there, that they aggressively marginalized her. In some ways, I think she feels to this day set up for failure when it came to the quote unquote border czar. I found that the details in there where she talked about the fact that she was, here she would give a speech, it would be approved, they'd see it, and then it gets a little traction, and they'd be upset that it got a little traction and be upset with her. Look, this goes back to, and what my sneaking suspicion is that there was always division inside Biden world about whether to pick her or not. And those that didn't want her picked had a lot of power in that West Wing, and she was not treated as an equal. I want to be careful here. I don't want to violate off the record conversations, but I'll just put it this way. I am surprised that a former vice president who then assumed the presidency, who himself thought he was treated unfairly or dismissed at times or set up for failure by a presidential West Wing staff, would then become president and then treat his vice president in a way that I know he didn't like how he was treated. That is the thing that jumps out at me the most in this, is that a former vice president who assumes the presidency ends up treating his vice president as badly as he felt like he was treated at times. This is a reminder, right? Like, bad behavior is passed on, right? If you want to set a new tone, you have to set a new tone. It's too bad that didn't happen. And you can't help but read the excerpts and realize that I've always felt that there's too many people were in the vice president's ear. Too many people were trying to make money off the vice president, pushing her in different directions at times. I think a consulting team really sort of pushed her. I have no idea whether she had the ambition to be president in the teens that the consultants talked her into it. I don't know. Because the campaign she ran was way too consultant heavy, way too focus grouped. And it felt like too many people, which is in that. And you saw, and so of course she got this reputation for being cautious all the time. And I do think by her nature, prosecutors are cautious. You have to be. Defense attorneys don't have to be. But when you're representing the government, you have to dot every I and cross every T. Right? That should be an asset. But in politics, that isn't an asset, right? So by her, it's always been by her nature, she's cautious. Well, of course, because she was a former prosecutor. That's how she cut her teeth in government. And from there, and being an attorney, same thing. When you're representative of the government in the legal space, you can't be a cowboy. Obviously, our politics rewards those that go off script. And that's just not who she is. We've talked about this. The campaign itself, I think in hindsight, it was doomed to fail. And there's nothing she could have done. That the circumstance that she was given made it impossible for her to sort of do that. Now, look, should she have thrown Biden under the bus sooner? Should she have told us all this? Perhaps. That would have been politically expedient, but it actually wouldn't be who she is. She waited till now. Look, the whole Biden presidency is sort of a tragedy. The Joe Biden I covered in 2008 Had he become president, he would have been, I think, a much different president. But she does seem to describe a presidency that we all thought we were seeing, which was it was very small bubble, tight circle, and that there were three or four people who were almost selfishly guarding the Biden presidency to the point where it looked like it was self-serving, more for themselves than looking out even for Biden, let alone the country. Um, the book may open some wounds inside the party, but I'm one of those you can't let this stuff fester. So rip the Band-Aid off and have the conversation. The other thing, and again, I want to be careful uh, using this excerpt to make an assumption about her ambition in the future. But now I'm a bit more convinced she wants to run for president again and on her terms and not have to run as Biden's vice president. It may be that that's a tattoo that she'll never be able to remove and she'll always be Biden's vice president. But if the rest of the book is similar to this excerpt, I certainly think she's trying to say, hey, I was in a position where I couldn't be the one to say he should have gone, but where was everybody else? Right? The hypnotized line was quite striking. Um, when she said, let me read it for you, that it was a Jill and Joe decision about whether he should run again. And she goes, we all said that like a mantra, as if we'd all been hypnotized. Was it grace or was it recklessness? In retrospect, I think it was recklessness. The stakes were simply too high. This wasn't a choice that should have been left to an individual's ego, an individual's ambition. It should have been more than a personal decision. And then she goes on, I was well aware of my delicate status. Lore has it that every outgoing chief of staff always tells the incoming president's chief of staff, rule number one, watch the VP, because I'd gone after him over busing in the 2019 primary debate. I came into the White House with what we lawyers call a rebuttable presumption. I had to prove my loyalty time and time again. The point was, and she made this point, she couldn't be the one to tell him he had to go because the assumption would have been she was the one that was going to benefit it, but she was in the impossible position. But all these Democrats that besmirched Dean Phillips, all these Democrats that stood by Biden and said that, at a minimum, Dean Phillips is owed an apology for how he was treated by the party. The party would have benefited from an open debate on this. I don't know whether future Democratic electorates will hold her time with Biden against her. Some might. We'll see if that makes her, if the country wants to turn the page, they may say, hey, do we want anybody connected to any of the last 10 years? And that's possible. But from what I read in this excerpt, it strikes me as she's somebody that isn't done in American politics and may want one more chance at the presidency.